The rain had been falling for hours, heavy, merciless, the kind that turns whole streets into rivers and makes the night feel colder than it should. But for 8-year-old Daniel, the storm didn't matter. Nothing did, except the limp hand of his mother resting on his lap. He sat beside her on the back of a rusted wooden tricycle ambulance, a desperate invention the neighborhood men pulled out only when someone was too poor to afford anything else. The metal roof rattled with every drop, the wheels splashed through muddy potholes, and the driver shouted over the thunder, "Hold on. We're almost there." Daniel didn't answer. He couldn't. His voice was trapped beneath the weight of fear. His mother, Luz, lay with her head against his small shoulder, her breathing shallow, her skin cold. Hours earlier, she had been laughing, cooking their favorite adobo, humming a tune in her soft voice, the voice that warmed their tiny home like sunlight. Now she seemed to be fading right in front of him. "Mama. Mama, please wake up," Daniel whispered, shaking her lightly, but her eyes stayed closed. He pressed his cheek against her forehead, trying to give her warmth. She didn't move. Thunder cracked above them. Daniel's heart cracked with it. They reached the small provincial hospital just as the rain grew harder. The driver jumped off, yelling for help. 2 nurses rushed out with a stretcher, lifting Luz from the tricycle as Daniel stumbled behind them, soaked to the bone, clutching her slipper that had slipped off. Inside, everything smelled like disinfectant and fear. The bright lights stung his eyes. Nurses shouted orders, machines beeped, curtains swayed. Daniel stood in the hallway, dripping water onto the floor, chest rising and falling too fast as he watched strangers wheel his mother away. A doctor approached, his white coat stained slightly with coffee and exhaustion. He crouched to Daniel's eye level. "You're her son?" he asked. Gently. Daniel nodded. "What's your name?" Daniel." The doctor hesitated, looking down the hallway where Luz had disappeared. When he looked back at Daniel, there was something heavy in his eyes, something far too big for an 8-year-old to understand. "Daniel. Your mother is very, very sick," he said softly. "We're going to do everything we can. But I need you to be strong, okay?" Daniel swallowed hard. "She's going to be okay, right?" The doctor wanted to say yes. Daniel could see it in his face. But instead, he sighed. "She may not make it through the night." The hallway suddenly felt too quiet. The world felt too still. And then it broke. "No." Daniel whispered, shaking his head violently. "No, no, no. You're lying. Mama is strong." His voice cracked, rising like a scream stuck in his chest. The doctor placed a hand on Daniel's shoulder. "I'm sorry." Daniel shoved the hand away. He ran past the doctor. Past the nurses, past the waiting chairs until he reached the door of the room where they had taken his mother. He pushed inside. The room was dim, lit only by a single flickering bulb. Machines beeped steadily. His mother lay motionless on the bed, her hair damp from rain, an oxygen mask covering her mouth. For a moment, Daniel froze. He didn't know what to do. He didn't even know how to breathe. Slowly, he climbed onto the bed, curling beside her, his tiny arms wrapping around her cold arm. "Mama." His voice shook violently. "Mama, it's me. Wake up, please." Her eyelids didn't move. Daniel pressed his ear to her chest. He heard faint breathing, like a whisper. He closed his eyes, tears falling silently onto her gown. Memories flooded him. Mama brushing his hair, Mama dancing with him in the kitchen, Mama singing him to sleep while he tried to hum along even though he never remembered the melody. And that memory, that melody, it tugged at him now. A lullaby. Her lullaby. Daniel wiped his tears with his sleeve. His heart pounded so hard it hurt, but he took a breath, a shaky, broken little breath. Then he began to sing. At first, no sound came out. His throat was tight. His fear too loud. But he tried again. This time, a soft, trembling note slipped into the room, barely more than a whisper. "Hush now, Anak. Mama's here. Close your eyes. Don't you fear." It was the lullaby she always sang, the one he had heard hundreds of times, the one that made even the darkest nights feel safe. His voice cracked on every word, but he kept going. Tears streamed down his face, mixing with the dried rain on his cheeks. "Dream of clouds. Dream of light. I'll hold your hand, all through the night." The machines kept beeping, the rain kept falling. But something in the room shifted. Daniel didn't notice at first. He was too focused on the melody, on getting it right, on giving something, anything, to his mother. "Mama loves you, endlessly. Sleep, my child. You're safe with me." His voice grew a little steadier, a little stronger. It filled the room with warmth that the cold machines could never give. Then a small movement. Daniel stopped singing, eyes widening. His mother's fingers twitched beneath his hand. "Mama," he whispered, breath held. Slowly, painfully, Luz's eyelids fluttered open. Her eyes, tired but alive, met Daniel's. Daniel," her voice rasped, barely a sound. A sob burst from Daniel's chest. "Mama. Mama, you're awake. Doctor. Mama, open your eyes." Nurses rushed in, shocked, whispering words like impossible and miracle under their breath. But Daniel wasn't listening. He held his mother's hand like it was the world. And in that moment, it was. Luz looked at him, really looked, and despite the tubes and pain and exhaustion, she managed a soft, proud smile. "You sang for me," she whispered weakly. Daniel nodded through tears. "I didn't want you to go." She squeezed his hand with the last strength she had. "I won't," she whispered. "Not tonight." And with that, the storm outside suddenly felt a little less loud, a little less cruel. Because an 8-year-old boy had done the impossible. He had sung his mother back to life. For weeks after that miraculous night, people in Daniel's small barangay whispered about the boy who sang life back into his mother. In a place where most miracles were only dreamed about during Sunday Mass, Luz's sudden recovery felt like a story passed down from the heavens. But for Daniel, the miracle wasn't something to brag about. It was something to protect. His mother had always been his world. And now she felt like something fragile he had to hold with both hands. A house filled with gratitude. Their home, a small bamboo hut with a tin roof patched in 5 different places, looked the same as before, but inside, everything felt different. Every morning, Luz woke slowly but smiling, greeting Daniel with a soft "Good morning, Anak," like those words were a blessing she had earned. Daniel watched her closely every day, every step she took, every breath. He became her shadow, her protector, her small guardian angel with messy hair and a heart too big for his age. When she coughed, he rushed to her side. When she sat down, he asked if she needed water. When she stood up too fast, his hands were already reaching to steady her. It didn't matter that he was only 8. Love made him feel older. And Luz noticed everything. One afternoon, as she sat peeling camote by the window, she pulled Daniel beside her and placed a gentle hand on his cheek. "You saved me," she whispered. Daniel shook his head. "The doctor saved you." "No," she replied softly, smiling. "Your voice did." He looked down, shy. "I was scared to lose you." Luz's eyes softened with a mother's bought ardor, understanding the kind that sees through every whispered word. "You didn't save me because you were scared," she said, brushing a strand of hair from his forehead. "You saved me because you love me." Daniel didn't answer, but in his heart, he made a promise: "I'll always sing for you, Mama. No matter what. No matter when. I'll always sing." The neighborhood's miracle boy news spreads fast in small barangays, faster than tricycles, faster than gossip, faster than hope. The market vendors said Daniel had the voice of an angel. The tricycle drivers said he was blessed. The old women said. His song carries the spirit of a mother's prayer. People started coming to their home, neighbors, relatives, strangers asking to hear Daniel sing. Some came out of curiosity. Others came because they believed hearing him would heal their sadness or ease their pain. Daniel didn't understand why they cried when he sang. He was just a child, after all, barely tall enough to reach the top shelf, but Luz understood. His voice wasn't powerful. It wasn't trained. It wasn't perfect. But it was pure. And pure things move people. When someone in the community fell sick, an elderly woman with arthritis, a fisherman injured at sea, a child with a fever, people asked, "Can Daniel sing for them?" And he did. Not because he felt special, but because he felt responsible. He believed kindness was something you gave away without asking for anything back. Every time he sang for others, he returned home and found his mother watching from the window, wiping her eyes with the edge of her apron. She never stopped being grateful. The bond that grew between them. As the months passed, Luz's health improved, but she was still frail. Some days she cooked. Some days she rested. Some days she smiled as if life had returned lighter than before. But no matter the day, the same ritual repeated. Every night before bed, Daniel sat beside her on their thin woven mat, and he sang the lullaby, the same lullaby she once sang to him, the same one that had pulled her back from the edge. Sometimes she hummed along. Sometimes she cried quietly, pretending it was nothing. But every time, she held Daniel's hand tightly, as if his small fingers were the thread keeping her here. Those nights were their sanctuary, just mother and son, wrapped in a love too deep for words. One night, after his song faded into the quiet of the room, Luz whispered, "Daniel, you don't have to take care of me." Daniel blinked. "But I want to." "I know," she said, brushing his cheek. "But you're too young to carry so much." He rested his head on her shoulder. "Mama. When I sing, I feel strong." She closed her eyes, letting his words soak into her heart. "Then promise me something." "What?" "Sing because you love it, not because you're afraid of losing me." Daniel didn't fully understand. But he nodded anyway. Growing through hardship, even with Luz recovering, life was far from easy. Bills piled up. Medicine costs increased. Daniel's school shoes wore out so badly he stitched them with fishing line. Sometimes they ate only rice with salt. Sometimes Daniel went to bed hungry so his mother could eat. But somehow, amidst all the hardship, they laughed. They prayed. They held on to each other. On weekends, Daniel helped his mother wash clothes for neighbors. Soap suds clung to their arms as they worked side by side. Luz sang softly, just enough for him to hear her voice, weak but full of warmth. One day, Luz stopped scrubbing and looked at him with a sudden seriousness. "You have a gift," she said. Daniel blinked. "A gift?" "Your voice," she said. "It's not just a talent. It's kindness. When you sing, you give people hope." Daniel smiled shyly. "But I only want to sing for you." Her heart squeezed. "One day, Anak, you'll sing for the world." He didn't believe her then. But she already saw it, the future he couldn't imagine. A promise made under the stars. One night, during a brownout, when the whole neighborhood fell into darkness and silence, Daniel and Luz sat outside their home, staring at the sky. The stars shimmered like tiny lanterns scattered across a black canvas. Crickets chirped. A soft breeze carried the smell of earth after rain. "Mama?" Daniel whispered. "Yes, Anak. You won't ever leave me, right?" Luz didn't answer immediately. The truth sat heavy in her chest. But she took his hand and placed it over her heart. "Even if my body leaves," she whispered, "my love never will." Daniel swallowed hard. And under that quiet, star-covered sky, he made the promise again, silently, deeply, "I will always sing for you. As long as you live. And long after." He didn't know how life would test that promise. He didn't know how time would change him. He didn't know how impossible keeping it would one day become. All he knew was love. And that was enough. For now. 15 years passed as quietly as the tide rising along the shore, slow, steady, unnoticed, until one day you realized the water had climbed higher than you ever expected. Daniel was no longer the thin, wide-eyed boy who once chased after a tricycle ambulance through monsoon rain. He was 23 now, with a man's shoulders but a child's heart still tied to one woman, his mother. Life had carved lines of exhaustion into his face that didn't belong to someone so young. He worked 2 jobs, delivering water containers in the morning and cleaning a small grocery at night. Sleep came in scattered pieces. Meals were often skipped. Dreams, the kind he once imagined as a child, had become luxuries he no longer allowed himself. Because Luz needed medicine. Because Luz needed tests. Because Luz needed him. He never complained. He never asked why life had to be so heavy. He just kept going. But something else happened over those years. Slowly, quietly, painfully, Daniel stopped singing. Not in one sudden moment. Not because he wanted to. But because exhaustion has a way of dimming even the brightest parts of a person. At first he hummed softly while washing dishes. Then only when he was alone. Then not at all. The voice that once saved a life now hid behind bills, responsibility, and fear. A home filled with echoes. Instead of music, their house was different, too, older, more fragile. The bamboo walls sagged slightly. The roof leaked more each rainy season. The once bright curtains had faded into a dull beige. And the silence, there was so much silence now. Luz noticed it long before Daniel realized it himself. "You don't sing anymore," she said one morning while stirring a pot of thin soup. Daniel, tying his shoes for work, forced a small smile. "I do sometimes." "No," she said softly. "Not for a long time." He paused. "But I'm just tired. Ma." She reached for his hand, her fingers thin and cold. "Your voice is a gift, Anik. Don't lose it." Daniel squeezed her hand gently. "I haven't lost it. Life is busy. Busy. Exhausting. Overwhelming." But he didn't want her to worry, so he kissed her forehead and left for work, missing the way her smile faded the moment he walked out the door. The illness returned stronger, crueler. It started with small signs. A cough that didn't go away. Fatigue that made her sit down after only a few steps. Complaints of chest tightness. Daniel tried to ignore the fear building inside him. After all, he had pulled her through once. Maybe she just needed rest. Maybe it wasn't serious. Maybe. But deep down, he knew. Life rarely gave second miracles. One night, Daniel found Luz slumped against the wall, breathing fast, clutching her chest. He rushed to her, lifting her gently, panic rising in his voice. "Mama. Ma, look at me. Talk to me." She tried to speak but only managed a whisper. "Daniel. I'm just tired." "No. No, this isn't tired." His voice cracked. "I'm taking you to the hospital." She shook her head weakly. "We don't have money for, I don't care," he snapped, tears filling his eyes. "I'm not losing you." He carried her in his arms, her weight frighteningly light, and rushed outside to call for a tricycle. But even as they sped toward the hospital, Luz leaned her head against him, her breathing shallow and uneven, just like the night he almost lost her years ago. Only this time, she didn't open her eyes. The hospital room that felt too familiar. The hospital was the same one they had rushed to 15 years earlier. The same halls. The same smell. The same sickly yellow lights flickering above. But this time, Daniel wasn't a child. He was a man with the same fear in his chest, but heavier, deeper, sharper. Doctors moved quickly. Nurses placed tubes and wires. Machines beeped in unsettling patterns. Daniel watched helplessly as they worked on his mother, whispering urgent commands. Finally, a nurse guided him to a plastic chair beside the bed. "Stay with her," she said softly. He sat. He held his mother's hand. And he waited. The hours dragged like years. When a doctor finally entered, his expression was grave. "Daniel," he said, "your mother's heart is very weak. Her lungs too. The infection is severe." Daniel's breath caught. "She can get better, right?" The doctor hesitated. "We're doing everything we can. But you should prepare yourself, prepare himself." Words that hit like a hammer. "Sing for her, Daniel." Word spread quickly. Family arrived. Neighbors came. Even people Daniel hadn't spoken to in years appeared at the hospital doors. Everyone remembered the miracle. Everyone remembered the boy who sang life into his mother once before. An aunt touched his arm gently. "Daniel, maybe you should sing." A neighbor added, "Your voice saved her before." A cousin whispered, "Do it again. Please." Daniel's chest tightened. He shook his head. "I can't." His aunt's face creased with confusion. "Why not?" "I said I can't." He snapped, louder than he intended. Silence fell. He lowered his head, shame burning his face. "My voice. It's not. I don't sing anymore." A neighbor replied softly, "But she needs you." Daniel looked into the room where his mother lay surrounded by machines, her breaths shallow, her life slipping like sand through fingertips. He stepped toward the bed. He tried to open his mouth. He tried to summon the melody he had sung all his life, but nothing came out. Not one note. Not one hum. Not even a whisper of music. His voice felt trapped somewhere deep inside, buried under years of exhaustion, guilt, and fear. He tried again. His throat tightened. Painfully. Tears gathered. His chest shook. Still silence. "I'm sorry," he whispered, collapsing to his knees beside the bed. "Mama, I'm sorry, I can't. I can't sing anymore." His tears fell onto her hand. His breath broke in jagged pieces. He clutched her fingers helplessly, feeling them grow colder. He had sung her back to life once. But now he couldn't give her the one thing she had always cherished. The one thing he had promised. And for the first time in 15 years Daniel felt truly, devastatingly powerless. A son who could only watch. Night fell. Visitors left. Machines hummed steadily, indifferent to the grief in the room. Daniel sat beside his mother, holding her hand in both of his. His eyes were tired. His heart was broken. His voice was gone. Just as she had once looked at him in a hospital bed, he now watched her praying, begging, pleading silently. "Please. Stay. Please." But Luz never opened her eyes. The woman, who once lived because of his voice, now lay fading away as he sat beside her in silence. And Daniel felt the deepest truth he had ever known: saving someone once doesn't mean you can save them forever. The world inside the hospital room felt frozen in time. Machines hummed their indifferent rhythms, whispering reminders of what the human heart could no longer do on its own. Outside, dawn pressed pale light against the window, softening the shadows that clung to every corner. Daniel had fallen asleep in a plastic chair with his forehead resting on the bed, still holding his mother's hand. His fingers were stiff, cold, and aching, but he never loosened his grip. It was the only warmth he could still offer. When he opened his eyes to the dim light of morning, something felt wrong. Stillness. A stillness so complete it made the air feel heavy. He lifted his head slowly. His mother's chest was no longer rising. Her fingers no longer curled weakly in reflex. Her lips no longer moved with tiny breaths. His world broke in an instant. "Mama." His voice was small, cracked. "Mama." He shook her hand gently, then harder. Mama, please. But the truth sat before him, quiet and irreversible. She was gone. A sound left Daniel's chest raw, strangled, animal. Not the voice that once sang miracles, but the voice of a man who had lost the only person he had ever lived for. He pressed his forehead to her arm, tears soaking through the thin hospital blanket. "I'm sorry," he sobbed. "Mama. I'm so sorry, I tried. I wanted to sing. I wanted to. But I couldn't." His words dissolved into shaking breaths. For the first time since he was a child, he felt 8 years old again, small, helpless, desperate. But there was no lullaby this time. No song to fix what was broken. Just loss. Just silence. Just grief. The letter under the pillow. The nurse entered quietly, her face soft with sympathy. She placed a hand on Daniel's shoulder. "We'll give you time, hee-ho. Take all the time you need." After a while, when his tears slowed into a hollow quiet, she approached him again. "Daniel," she said gently, "there's something your mother wanted you to have." He looked up, confused. She lifted the corner of the pillow, revealing a small white envelope tucked beneath it, carefully placed, like something meant to be found only after. His name was written on the front in Luz's shaky but familiar handwriting. "To my son, Daniel." His breath hitched. His fingers trembled as he reached out, taking the letter as though it were a fragile thing that might crumble in his hands. He stared at it for a long moment, afraid to open it, afraid of what it would confirm. His mother had known. She had known she wouldn't make it. With a deep, painful breath, he opened the envelope. Inside was a folded sheet of paper, written in blue ink. Her handwriting wavered in places, as though gravity itself had been pulling at each letter. He began to read. "My son, your voice didn't save me. Your love did. My dearest Daniel, if you are reading this, it means my body has finally grown too tired to stay. I'm sorry I had to leave you. I wanted so badly to see the rest of your life, to watch you smile without worry, to hear you laugh without fear, to see you become the man I always knew you would be." Daniel's lip trembled. Tears blurred the ink, but he blinked through them. "My son, I know you think your voice saved me when you were 8. Everyone thought so. But they misunderstood what happened that night. It was not your singing that brought me back. It was the love inside your singing." Daniel stopped reading as his breath shuddered. He pressed the paper to his chest for a moment, as if he could pull her voice out of the ink. He continued. "I woke up because I heard my child calling me with love so pure it reached places medicine cannot. I came back because you gave me a reason to. Because you needed me. Because you believed in me. Not because you hit the right note or sang the right melody." His tears fell, dotting the paper. "For years, people told you that you had a miracle in your voice. But Anak, the miracle was always your heart. You sang for others, not to impress them, but because you wanted to help. You sang for me because you wanted me to stay. And I did. I stayed 15 more years because of you." Daniel covered his mouth, trying not to break again. "But now listen carefully, Daniel, you do not owe me songs. You do not owe me miracles. You did enough. More than enough, you gave me 15 years I was never supposed to have." Daniel's chest ached with every word. "I saw you grow into a man. I watched you work until your body ached. I watched you carry burdens that should not have been yours so young. And I felt guilt. So much guilt that you were sacrificing pieces of your life to keep me alive." He froze. He had never imagined she felt that. "So, my son, if the day came when you could not sing for me, I want you to know, that is not failure. It is freedom." Those words hit harder than any note he had ever tried to reach. You didn't sing because your heart was tired. Because you were tired. Because life had made you carry too much. And I never, ever wanted my life to be the reason you lost your voice." Daniel's shoulders shook, tears falling freely. So do not grieve thinking you failed me. You gave me everything. Your love saved me twice, once when I was dying, and again every day afterward. Now, Anak, I want you to live. Truly live. And if you ever sing again, let it be because you want to, not because you think it will save someone. I will hear it from wherever I am. And I will smile. Love forever, Mama, the truth. That sets him free. Daniel clutched the letter to his chest as sobs shook through him, loud, painful, cleansing sobs. All the guilt, the pressure, the shame he had carried for years, spilled out of him. He had believed he failed her. He had believed his silence was the reason she died. He had believed he broke the one promise he made. But now he finally understood. She never wanted a miracle from him. She wanted him. Just him. Her boy. Her son. Her life's greatest gift. And for the first time since she fell sick, Daniel let himself breathe not the shallow breaths of panic, but a deep, grounding breath that carried her love. This was her final gift. Not a request. Not a burden. But freedom. Freedom from guilt. Freedom from expectations. Freedom to find himself again. He kissed the letter softly and whispered through tears, I love you, Mama. Thank you, for everything. The morning light warmed the room, falling gently onto Luz's still face, onto Daniel's trembling hands, onto the letter that held the love of a lifetime. Her body was gone. But her love that would never leave. The lights of the AGT stage dimmed as Gabriel stepped forward, each footstep echoing like a memory he wasn't sure he was ready to relive. The crowd was silent, too silent. It reminded him of hospital rooms, of moments when breath was a luxury, of nights when he prayed simply to hear his mother inhale one more time. He stood in the center of the stage, guitar hanging at his side. His fingers trembled slightly. He wasn't afraid of the audience. He wasn't afraid of Simon or the cameras. He was afraid of the truth. He cleared his throat, the microphone amplifying even the smallest sound. My name is Gabriel de Vera, he began softly. I'm 23 years old. A wave of applause. He smiled faintly. I came here today because of a promise. He paused. The air thickened. Even Simon leaned in slightly. Gabriel inhaled, forcing himself to remain steady. When I was 8, my mom was dying, he continued. The doctors said she wouldn't make it through the night. But I sang for her. And somehow, she came back. They called it a miracle. I just called it love. Whispers swept through the crowd. Gabriel nodded, remembering, I thought that meant music would always save her. But 15 years later, when the cancer returned, I tried to sing again. His voice wavered. And this time, nothing happened. My voice wasn't enough. I wasn't enough. A hush fell so complete that even the cameras seemed to stop breathing. He blinked back tears, swallowing the weight in his throat. She died holding my hand. She told me, Anak, your voice saved me once. Now let it save others. His chest tightened, but he continued. So, I'm here. Not to bring her back. I know I can't. I'm here to keep my promise. He lifted his guitar, hands steady now. The fear was gone. What remained was love, pure, unfiltered, unbroken. He strummed the first chord. It was soft. Almost too soft. But the room listened. The melody soaked through the silence like sunrise creeping through a window. His voice entered gently, older now, deeper, but still carrying that tender ache that had once held on to a heartbeat. Mama, can you hear me? In the quiet of the night. I'm still singing all the songs you taught me when the world felt right. A woman in the front row wiped her cheeks. A man in the back lowered his head. Something about Gabriel's voice wasn't just beautiful, it was honest. Every note carried the weight of a lost childhood, the warmth of a mother's embrace, the helplessness of trying to hold on to someone slipping away. But there was healing in it too. If love could build a bridge, I'd cross it back to you, but I know now love is larger. It lives in what we do. He closed his eyes. On the stage, he wasn't standing in front of thousands. He was 8 again, barefoot on a cold hospital floor. He was 15, crying into trembling hands. He was 23, finally accepting what he could not change. The final verse softened to a whisper. Mama, I can't save you twice. But I can keep your heart alive. Every time I sing, you survive. The guitar faded into silence. For a heartbeat, one eternal heartbeat, nothing happened. Then the world broke open. The entire theater rose to its feet at once. It wasn't applause, it was an eruption. A tidal wave. People shouting, crying, cheering. Some clutching their chests as if steadying their own hearts. Simon Cowell stared at him, completely undone. His lips parted, but words refused to come. His eyes glistened. For a moment, he looked like a man remembering his own mother, his own losses, his own wounds. He leaned toward his microphone. That, he said quietly, is what music is for. Gabriel exhaled shakily. Simon continued, voice rough around the edges, you may think you couldn't save your mother twice, but tonight, you saved all of us. The audience roared again. And Gabriel, Simon added, standing rare. Breathtaking, this isn't a decision for the judges. This is a decision for your mother. His hand slammed the golden buzzer. A storm of gold burst from above, swirling around Gabriel like a shower of burning stars. The music swelled. The audience screamed. The judges stood. The lights shimmered in warm gold. Gabriel covered his mouth, tears rushing freely now. He tilted his head upward toward the lights, toward the invisible heavens beyond them. Ma, he whispered through the noise, I did it. The confetti kept falling, landing on his hair, his shoulders, the guitar she gave him when he was 8. He pressed a hand to his chest, feeling the beat of his own heart, and something deeper, something lighter. In that moment, he realized the truth, he hadn't come to find a miracle. He had come to become one. His mother wasn't gone. She was in every note he sang, every life he touched, every heart he opened. His voice hadn't failed her. It had simply changed its purpose. And as he stood on that stage, bathed in gold, Gabriel knew finally, fully that love didn't end. It didn't fade. It didn't disappear. It lived on. In him. Through him. Because of her. And somewhere above the glittering lights, a mother smiled.